Hello everyone, Soprano Theories here, and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another video. Before we get started, if you're new here, be sure to click subscribe and click the bell to get notifications on all upcoming Sopranos content, as this channel is 100% dedicated to the Sopranos, and we're on the road to chase 100,000 subscribers. Also, be sure to follow me on X, Instagram, and Patreon. All links will be linked below. The Sopranos itself showcases a wide variety of topics throughout its 6 seasons. As the series tackled topics of racism, patriotism, the struggles of everyday life, the American dream, modern life in America during the 2000s, the mafia, themes of family, mental health, depression, and anxiety. But there's also the theme of terrorism that the series shifts its focus towards after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. As after the attacks, the Twin Towers were removed entirely from the series' opening credits, we are introduced to narratives of heightened security, global concerns, and the characters within the series living in constant fear. And throughout the series, we watch these characters within the series share their thoughts, opinions, and concerns about the ongoing war on terror. Whether this is Meadow and her job defending Muslims who are new to the United States, or AJ sharing his thoughts about the Iraqi war. But nowhere do we see this more than with Tony himself, as at the beginning of season 4, the first season and episode to air after the 9/11 attacks, for all debts public and private, Tony becomes more interested in the dangers and risks of terrorism than all the other characters. We are first introduced to Tony's obsession with terrorism during the 10th episode of the 5th season, Cold Cuts. The episode begins with Terry Doria waiting by the Newark ports for an order of Italian scooters. After John Sacramone blatantly lies to Tony about not having the scooters, he blames it on heightened security at the ports due to Al-Qaeda. Later in the episode, Tony sees a story on the news that shares the possibility of terrorists using shipping containers like the ones in Newark to hide either themselves or weapons of mass destruction. Near the end of the episode, Tony shares his stresses with the guys only for it to result in Tony getting angry and beating up Georgie the bartender. But as time would progress heading into the final season, Tony wouldn't be the only one who shifted their concerns towards the war on terror, as by the beginning of season 6, we watched Agent Dwight Harris get transferred and relocated to Pakistan to focus more on terrorism, as this is a result of the FBI spending more time and money on terrorism rather than organized crime. As in the beginning of the series, the FBI's goal was to bring down Tony Soprano and his crime family. But towards the end of the series, we could see that the characters, their concerns, and America as a whole was changing after the 9/11 attacks. And because of this, we watched Agent Harris develop a parasite in his stomach as a result of working in Pakistan. The entire last season of The Sopranos has a large portion of its duration focused on the war on terror that was taking place at the time. The second episode of the 6th season, we are introduced to 2 new characters. These are Ahmed Al-Najafi and Muhammed. The 2 are associates of Christopher, and for a while the 2 were frequent customers at the Bing before disappearing entirely without a trace. Because of this, Tony wondered if the 2 were somehow connected to Al-Qaeda. And when we are first introduced to the 2 mysterious men, they meet with Christopher to buy stolen credit cards. However, the 2 surprise Christopher at the Bing a few episodes later in the 5th episode of season 6, Mr. and Mrs. John Sacramone's Request, when they acquire about purchasing Tech-9 semi-automatic pistols with extended magazines to resolve a family situation involving Muhammad's former brother-in-law. Muhammad and Ahmed are introduced in the 6th season, and the mysterious storyline about the 2 characters ultimately sticks around towards the end of the final season. Later on in the episode Live Free or Die, Tony confronts Christopher about the possibility of Muhammad and Ahmed being linked to Al-Qaeda. Christopher shared suspicions about the 2 along with Tony, but later shot the idea down due to Muhammad and Ahmed being so-called gun nuts. Christopher also mentions the fact that Ahmed criticized the riots in response to those Danish cartoons, as he's referring to the 2005 controversy over caricatures of Muslim prophet Muhammad, as protesting these cartoons would only result in damaging the current image of Islam's. In the 16th episode of the final season, Chasing It, Tony spots Muhammad and Ahmed at a social club for Islams. But this time, the 2 are completely clean-shaven and looking completely different. More noticeably, Muhammad, as it almost looks as if the 2 were in disguise the entire time while hanging out at the Bing. And we also learned that the two only deal with the internet when dealing with stolen credit cards. Throughout the final season, we were constantly reminded that Agent Dwight Harris was transitioned to anti-terrorism, and that Tony or anyone ever knew anything, they'd be helping not only the FBI out, but also the United States as well. And throughout the entire 6th season, we watched Tony and others worry about the future terrorist attacks that could possibly take place in their country, as this was the current state of America after the 9/11 attacks. And throughout the final season, we watched Tony suspect Muhammed and Ahmed of being terrorist spies for Al-Qaeda. Acting out of fear, Tony passed their names, Ahmed's cell phone number, and details of their merchant bank to Agent Harris, in hopes of gaining information on Phil Leotardo's location in return, something that we would see come full circle in the final episode of the series. The topic of terrorism, the Iraqi war, and Agent Harris focusing on anti-terrorism is relevant all the way up until the final episode of the series, as we watch the amount of stress he deals with on a regular basis, as it makes Agent Harris physically sick. But Tony, Agent Harris, and many others weren't the only ones concerned about the current state of America, the war against Iraq, and had interest in bringing down potential terrorists. As we watch his son AJ try and learn Arabic, has ambitions to join the army to fight against Iraq, and later wants to pursue a career in the CIA. And in the final episode of the series, we watched Agent Harris get a potential scare when discovering a Muslim cell phone number was in the Newark airport. During this time in the United States, there was still a state of shock going around after the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and the fears that we see with Tony and AJ are completely normal, as throughout the series, The Sopranos did a tremendous job at adapting to the current world, whether this was technology, ongoing issues in the world like the war on Iraq, and many current events, and Tony's obsession with the ongoing war on terror was no different. What are your thoughts about The Sopranos' use on the war on terror and Tony's obsession with terrorism? I would love to hear them down in the comment section below. For more Sopranos content, keep it locked here, right here on this channel.